How's it going? Today we're going to talk about how to play over Misty for beginner guitar players, people that just start playing jazz for the first time, how to play over these chord changes, how to approach this piece of music. So here's how the track sounds. It's a 32-bar form, like a standard jazz tune, and there's an A section, a B section, and an A section. So it's a standard jazz progression. And if you ever find yourself playing in a wedding band situation, you're going to have to learn how to play this piece of music. This is a like one of those pieces you have to know how to be able to solo over. Usually it's in the key of E flat, which is where I'm playing right now. The flatted keys are kind of tough for guitar players. We're used to playing the caged system, C, A, G, E, and D, and playing in the open string positions. So the piece of music has an E flat major 7 as our 1 chord. Then there's a 2-5-1, B flat minor 7 to E flat 7 to A flat major 7. A flat major 7 is the 4 chord of E flat, but we are in a different key for like a moment. Or you can think of it as the 4 of E flat. Then there's a quick 2-5, A flat minor 7 to D flat 7. It's a 2-5 to nowhere. It's actually the 2-5 to G flat, but we don't ever go to G flat. We just kind of like abandon the 2-5. Sometimes that happens. You can string 2-5-1s. If you look at the circle of fourths, like the circle of fifths backwards, it's actually stringing a bunch of 2-5s over and over and over again. They don't actually ever land on 1, because what happens if I go 2-5-1 to here, that's A flat major, or A major 7 is the 1 chord, but we don't ever go there. We go straight to another 2-5. So that's kind of how it works. So we have 1, and then we have this 2-5 to this A flat major 7 to another 2-5. And you can find this in any standard jazz book. You can look up the chords and follow along with me if you have a real book with you. C minor 7 is the 6 chord. F minor 7 is the 2 chord. B flat 7, I'm playing a 13th chord in this case, is the 5 chord. And back to this E flat major 6 for the first ending. Actually, the first ending is G minor 7 to C 7, I'm sorry. Another string of 2-5s. F minor 7 to B flat 7. So this sounds like this. So that's going through the first ending. The second ending, instead of playing this 2-5, 2-5, 2-5, 2-5, you play an E flat 6. Now I've heard it before where you throw in a quick 4 chord there. Now the B section, we have B flat minor 7. There's a modulation to a completely different key. E7 flat 9. Now the E7 flat 9 is a minor chord, a minor 2 chord. It should be going to E flat to A flat minor 7 as a minor 2, but it's not. It's going to A flat major 7. So they took liberty with a third of that particular chord change there when they wrote this and decided to make that A flat major 7. Then it moves up a half step to this A minor 7. It's another modulation. And then we have a dominant and a dominant, and that happens a lot too. Like if you look at the bridge for like Flintstones. Flintstones, meet the Flintstones. When it goes like this, it's augmented there. When it goes, now courtesy of Fred's 2 feet, this is a string of 5, of 5, of 5, of 5, of 1. It's actually the 5 of 6, which is the 5 of 2, which is the 5 of 5, which is the 5 of 1. I know that's a lot to digest there, but that's what's happening here on this Misty tune. They play D7 into F7. It's kind of just 2 dominant chords existing there. And now this is actually written wrong in the I'm using the iReal Pro app. Well, I wrote the chord changes down on this piece of scrap paper there. It's written as G diminished 7, and my student Steve, who just left, we were talking about this. We always find these inconsistencies in the jazz standard books. This is not G diminished 7. It's actually a G minor 7 flat 5 because it's a 2 chord to C7. So the book is actually wrong, or the app is wrong, and somebody should tell them that. But I see that sometimes. It's like whenever you proofread a book and you notice things are wrong. But anyways, its function here is as a diminished, not diminished. Its function here is a minor 7 flat 5. Anyways, so that's inconsistency. Then we have another 2-5 to B flat, which is the 5 of 1. So then that bridge is kind of cool. It's like this. And then like this. Back to the A section again. One 6, 9 chord, a minor 9 sounds nice there. Another minor 9 to like a 13th chord over the 7th chord, back to 1 again. And then we have another 2-5 just for good measure. Actually, it is literally a good measure. So that's a 32 bar chord form, like a standard jazz progression. It's A, and then A, and then B, and then A. So how do we play over top of this tune is the question. So it's a ballad. I think I'm playing it at like 76 beats a minute or something, so it's kind of in between ballady and almost a little faster than a ballad. But the easiest go-to thing to do maybe is to start to learn how to connect these arpeggios together. So if we look at this one, this 2-5 here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play an E flat major 7 arpeggio, and I'll stay within 1 octave. Okay, now the B flat minor 7 arpeggio, if I decide to start on my second finger, which is kind of a hybrid of the C form and the A form in caged, I can do this. So what I did is I played the arpeggio here, and I started the arpeggio for B flat minor 7 here. I moved down chromatically with a passing tone. And there's my E flat 7 chord. There's A flat major 7. So I'll do that slowly. And now I'm going to swap thirds. Grab this D flat 7 chord right here. It sounds like this. Now, that's one approach to do this. You have to learn your arpeggios. I said this the last time I did a jazzy video. Learn arpeggios. Really dig in and try to figure out how to play these. When you're playing jazz, like two things that pop into my mind right now. So playing in a position can be binding if you play in just one position, like aqueducts, like 1st fret to the 4th fret. It's kind of better sometimes to move up and down the neck. I call this north, south, east, and west. Going from northeast to southwest is ideal. Going from southeast to northwest is not, because the notes don't change. You can see the timbre is the same. The pitch is the same. I'm sorry, the pitch is the same, but the timbre changes as the strings get fatter. So it's the same pitch, but a different timbre, which is one of the cool, unique factors about the guitar. But moving from southeast to northwest territory doesn't really do a lot for you as far as the melodic movement goes, like really moving a far distance. It's better to start here and climb your way up to here. Anyways, so if you can move up one string and kind of in different positions, that's great. But another concept, though, is to stay in one position and stack these. So if I'm playing E flat major 7, ultimately by studying, I'm going to want to try to find chords right here where I can make subtle changes by just changing a couple notes. There's a lot of studying involved in this, but it's not hard. Over the course of time, you'll start to learn how this works. You can see they're all right there. Here's a nifty little trick for you. If I play E flat major 7 here, check this out. There's B flat minor 7, and then there's the 2 chord here. The 1 chord is here. So I'm literally just going up a fourth. 2, 5, 1. Here's 6. So I can go like, and I could do the same thing here. Jazz works like that. There's like all kinds of cycles on your guitar that you can start to learn so you can stack things and not have to jump around. So what you want to do is you want to start to learn your arpeggios and then also 7th chords. If you can play 7th chords in one spot, or you can overlap your arpeggios. So if I play E flat major 7 here in this 1 octave, I'm going to limit myself to 1 octave. I'm not going to go beyond this little space right here because it's overwhelming. I can jump down a fourth for the B flat 7 chord, and I can go back up a fourth for E flat 7 and back up a fourth for A major 7. Like I was just talking about a second ago, the 2, 5, 1, it's a bunch of stacked fourths, right? Which is why we have tritone substitution to kind of eliminate that. But you can see that this is the way that jazz tunes work. Everything is kind of stacked. Like these are 6 keys in a row, you know, through the circle of fourths, which is the circle of fifths backwards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this arpeggio here. I'm going to try to count out 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And now I found myself hanging out to dry because I'm kind of like not really knowing where I'm going to go next. So instead, I used a passing tone to get into this next arpeggio, and here too. I had to throw in a 16th note because I ran out of, I wasn't actually landing on 1. You have to kind of like plan the measures as you go. You plan the measures to land on the next measure. So if I'm here, I'm kind of planning where I'm going to go next. Now this motion from, and again, if you have your real book in front of you, I'm doing Misty in E flat. Just grab the real book. You can follow along with the chord changes. If I go from this A flat major 7 chord, the tune goes to A flat minor 7. So it's called parallel movement, like the Beatles change. So if you're playing a lick like this, you can always bow down to that minor third. So I went, here's C minor 7 right here, F minor 7 to B flat 7. So then I kind of just cycled through the jazz changes. It takes a long time to practice this, but the thing you need to work on is try to memorize tunes. Okay, start there and listen to a lot of jazz. But as far as the actual practical nuts and bolts of this whole thing, start to learn 7th chords well enough that you can find these chords in one spot. And then arpeggios, the same thing. You can find your arpeggios in one spot. I'm not saying you shouldn't play from east to west or northeast to southwest. Like I make a career of that. I live and breathe wailing across the guitar this direction from east to west. But this kind of beboppy jazz concept is more position-oriented, I think, because the whole idea is to get sort of a melodic concept that's not like a straight line, but instead it's boo-da, boo-da, almost like an EKG. You have like a beat going on. Like, so I think that the idea is to play this note and grab a note that's higher. And it sounds right to me. So I'm kind of like I was a jazz guitar major in college, but literally I wasn't probably good enough to really get it when I was in college. I was 19, 20, 21, 22. I wasn't old enough to really grasp what they were probably trying to teach me. And then I sat there and figured a lot of stuff out. I've been teaching guitar for 25 and a half years as a full-time job, sitting in a chair in this building. It's a different room, but in the studio here for a lot of it, and through the 75,000 guitar lessons or something, just figuring things out. That's what you have to do. Like, you could take lessons and people can teach you. You have to have the discipline and the desire to solve the mystery kind of by yourself, because people can show you the idea of how to get things rolling. But it's like getting a toy. If I gave my son a brand new like little Hot Wheels car, right? If he doesn't play with that Hot Wheels car, it's not going to really do any good for anybody. He takes the car and then he thinks that he's in this race, like he watches Cars, the movie or something, and next thing you know, he's in a race because the Hot Wheels car has come to life. And guitar is the same thing. You have to take your ideas that you're being shown or that you're figuring out, and you have to explore them on your own. That's the way you do it. So when I said I think that's correct, I've been studying jazz guitar my entire life, and I feel like I'm just scratching the surface with everything on guitar, actually, for that matter. I always like joke around and say I'm a beginner guitar player because I really feel like that every day. No matter how accomplished I guess I am, I feel like I don't know anything because there's always more to learn. It's just like endless amount of stuff to learn. And that's what's so awesome about guitar playing. It's just literally endless. So this tune is Misty, where it's a 32 bar form. You can find this in any jazz standard book. The real book, I would do this in E flat. That's the standard key. Most of the time you're going to do it in E flat. You probably should learn how to modulate this eventually. You can modulate any song, but E flat is kind of the standard way to play this tune. It's a ballad, so the tempo I'm playing I think is 76 beats per minute, which is a ballad, but it's a little faster than it could be. When it's too slow, it's even harder to play over, I think. You can approach it playing scales over each individual chord, or you can play chords over the chords, depending. If you have two chords in a measure, I kind of call that the satin doll factor. When you have two chords in a measure to deal with, it's a little harder to play scales over those two chords when you only have 2 beats per chord. So you might want to arpeggiate those and then land on the scale for the whole measure. Like over this A flat chord, I'll play a Lydian scale because I have an entire measure to do something. But then I'm back to this less space, less time, because I only have a second to think about it. There's 2 chords in that measure. I'm going to drink some water here. So it's a 32 bar form. We have A, B, A. The chords again are E flat major 7. And then we have this quick 2-5, B flat minor 7 to E flat, to A flat major 7, which is the 4 of E flat. Then there's another quick 2-5 to nowhere. It's actually the 2-5 of G flat major 7. We're never going to get there. They have 1, 6, 2-5 of E flat, which is the standard rhythm changes, right? And then we have this cool 2-5 to nowhere. So what's happening here, I'll talk about this cycle again. G minor 7 to C7 is actually the 2-5 to F major 7. But we don't land on F major 7, we land on F minor 7 because it's the 2 chord of the 5 of B flat, which is the 5 of A. So by doing that, we don't actually ever land on the 1 chord of these 2 5s, we land on another 2-5. So if you look at the circle of fifths, this is the C key. C is 1 sharp, G is, no sharps, G is 1 sharp, A is 2. D is 2, A is 3, E is 4, B is 5, F sharp has 6, C sharp has 7. As you can see, the circle of fifths moves like this up the guitar neck. But if I go the other direction like this, that's the circle of fifths backwards, which is the circle of fourths. The circle of fourths is way more valuable to learn because the jazz tunes cycle through fourths. That's the way jazz works. If you look at this, the key of C, no sharps, F is 1 flat, B flat is 2 flats, E flat is 3 flats, A flat is 4 flats. As you can see, I'm moving through the circle of fifths backwards. So when you do that, you could go by using tritone substitution. I've got this really cool thing happening like that. So this tune's no different. Rhythm changes in the middle of this tune here, and you can see, how you doing? Thanks for joining me. We're talking about Misty, the tune Misty. So E flat major 7, if I play that, C minor 7 to F, to A minor, I did that wrong. From B, C minor 7 to F minor 7 to B flat 7, there it is. You can see that these notes are moving up a fourth each time. When you play jazz, you can cycle through fourths by climbing up. All the keys work like that. You can play all 12 keys by doing just 2 stacking of 6 notes. So if I go here to here to here, if you go up a fourth, you can also go down a fifth, and you get the same thing. So this to this is, if I play this to this, It's the same as this to this. Pretty cool, right? So now, if I'm going to play my chords through, oh yeah, let's go back through the song again. So we have 1, 2, 5 to 4, and then the 2, 5 to nowhere. 1, 6, 2, 5, and then 2, 5 to this nowhere again to F minor 7, which is actually supposed to be major 7, but it's a 2, 5 of E flat 6. And that's the first ending. And again, it's going to be 8 measures of the 32 bar form. We do it again, and we do the 2, 5 again, and we have this 4 chord. And now it's a minor, it's the Beatles change to this. I did tritone substitution on that chord. 1, 6, 2, 5. And now I have this E flat 6. I put the 5th in the bass, and it sounds good. I like that. Sometimes I see this A flat chord in there too, like a little plagal cadence thrown into that change right there. Now we have the B section, there's a modulation. This 2 chord here should be a 2 chord for a minor chord, but it's not, so it's cool. They wrote using swapping thirds here, E flat 7 flat 9 to A flat major 7. This chord here, you want to play Phrygian dominant over that. It comes from A flat harmonic minor, but again, it's not a minor chord, it's supposed to be, but they kind of took liberty to make it major because the great composers back in the day could do that. They could do whatever they wanted to do, and so there's little subtle changes that made the tunes so good because they could just swap a third here and there and suddenly have this much better song because they just took the liberty to change whatever they wanted to change. And as you study this stuff, you realize that these great writers back in those days, man, they were good. These songs are like perfect. In a way, they're actually easier to remember than the rock songs because they're all very formulaic and they're all logical. Even though they're taking liberty to do some subtle, nuanced changes, they're very logical in their conception and in the way that they're put together. So you can memorize one, you memorize a lot. They're all sort of the same-ish. A minor 7 to D7. Now this is kind of just 2 dominant chords in a row, and the reason that is, it's like the Flintstones, right? Rhythm changes. We have this 1, 6, 2, 5 happening, and then it's like this augmented chord to the 1 chord. Then there's always this bridge. The Charlie Parker tunes too. A lot of them have this bridge where you have these dominant chords that cycle like this. This is the part where it's like Fred's 2 feet. What's happening here, all you theory nerds, is E. This is supposed to be the 3 chord of C, but it's a dominant chord. You can substitute any chord with a dominant chord. I'll check this out. What happens here is this is the 5 of 6, but we're making that dominant also because that's the 5 of 2. We're going to make that dominant also because it's the 5 of 5, and then it goes back to 1, and 1 could be dominant, I suppose, as well if you wanted it to. But what happens here is you get these tritones, the guide tones. You could actually do the 6 chord as well. Sorry, the 3 chord. But if I go like this, check this out. Here's my guide tones. Here's this guide tone. Here's this guide tone. How cool is that? So I go. And that's what I was doing a moment ago when I was doing this. So this is really neat. This thing here in this tune, when you have this and this, they're just throwing that in because that's what that is. Now this, again, I'd mentioned a moment ago, this is written incorrectly on the iReal Pro app. And Steve, my student, and we noticed that there's a lot of songs that are written in these books with the wrong chord. Actually, The Girl from Ipanema has a wrong chord in it too. This is not supposed to be a half diminished chord because it's the 2 chord of C7. It should be written as a minor 7 flat 5 because the function is a minor function. So that's a mistake. And whoever did the iReal Pro should fix that, but I don't know who those people are, so I'll just leave it alone. It's probably wrong in the book too. A lot of drugs back in those days for those guys. Anyways, there's the 1 chord, and we're going to quick 2, 5 to the 4 again. And then another 2, 5 to nowhere, into the abyss. Then we have 1, 6, 2, 5. That's your standard rhythm, changes back to 1 again. And there's a quick 2, 5 thrown in for the last measure. And then we were talking about soloing over top of this. I'm playing at 75 or 6 beats a minute, so it's a good tempo that you can play arpeggios. You don't have to play scales. If this song's played really slowly, you kind of have to play a scale over top of it because it's so slow that you can't really stack arpeggios. It doesn't sound good. And then this measure here, I was talking about what I call the satin doll factor. When you have two chords in the same measure, it's so hard to think fast enough. You can't possibly play scales over that. I guess you could, I'm just not good enough to do it. So I'll always kind of just play something over there where I'm playing arpeggios and stacking those. So what you should do to learn how to do this, get your entry point into jazz here, is to learn your arpeggios across the guitar neck and also learn how to play your seventh chords across the guitar neck, major, minor, and dominant seventh chords. So playing in a position can be limiting. It's probably better to go from east to west or northeast to southwest in that direction, which I tend to do all the time when I'm wailing on the rock stuff. But here, if we stack these, we get better voice leading. Voice leading is that, like this chord, only a couple notes are changing to this chord, so everything's very tight. Here's a 6 chord. Look how tight that is. Watch this. That's what we want. So if you can learn how to play this E flat major 7 chord, and there's a video on the channel about playing the blues with dominant 7th chords. You should watch that video because I talk about starting to do that with the blues with these dominant 7th chords and a string grouping of 4, 3, 2, 1. That's the beginning of learning how to do that. So that video is on the channel. So you have to kind of start to learn, and I'll do a bunch of videos on these specific videos about how to learn all these jazz chords in a functional fashion, and how to learn how to arpeggiate in a functional fashion so you can overlap everything. Let's play with this a little bit. I made a backing track that has like the sort of the piano technique and also a little chunka underneath it too. And let's see what it sounds like. Oops. I'm trying to play the same riffs that we were playing before. I'm playing the same concepts I was talking about, trying to be consistent. Now we're into the B section, the modulation. You just play the harmonic minor scale on this one. In there, a little Dorian scale on this one. So as you can see, you can play these arpeggios everywhere across the guitar neck, and it's really fun to do it. So take a look at Misty and start to memorize the chord changes for this tune. 32 bar form, you'll see there's so much more similarities and differences between these jazz tunes. They're really consistent, which is kind of makes it actually easier than learning random rock songs. Like, I always find punk music to be difficult because they're not necessarily logical. They're not following a logical format. A lot of times it's very random to me. And I guess that's okay. It's sort of the voice of chaos in a sense. But these guys back in those days, these jazz guys, they knew what they were doing. They wrote some really great songs. This is a good one to start with. Definitely start with the ballads. They're easier because the tempo is slower, so you don't have to play as fast. You don't have to think as fast. You can just kind of get into the groove of it. Memorize the chord changes, analyze the chord changes, figure out how they're working as far as the Roman numeral analysis goes, how the chords work, what numbers they are, modulations, key changes, things like that. You'll start to see the cool little tricks that these guys are doing. Start to learn your arpeggios across the guitar neck and also how to play seventh chords across the guitar neck. I need to do some videos on all of those topics. There's so much to cover. But hopefully you had fun today watching this little tutorial on how to start playing over Misty. I think it's a beautiful piece of music, and so it's definitely worth your time. Get out your chord book and start to figure out how to piece these chords together. And really, really fun to do. And remember, take a look at the circle of fifths, but do it backwards for the circle of fourths, because those stacked fourths are the way the jazz tunes work. Keep that in mind too. Like I was saying, key of C has no sharps, G has 1, D has 2, A has 3, E has 4, B has 5, F sharp has 6, C sharp is 7. So as you move up, you can see the circle of fifths is doing that. If I go the other direction, there's your circle of fourths, and that's the way the jazz tunes are working. 1, 6, 2, 5 is the circle of fourths. Key of C has no sharps, key of A has 3, right? But check this out, key of D has 2, key of G has 1, key of C has none. So as I cycle through those, you can see that the keys themselves, if I go 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. Key of E, I'm not talking about the quality of the chord I'm playing. This is a minor chord, but the key of E is a major, as a major key. As a key itself has 4 sharps in the key. A minor has 3, D minor has 2, C has 1, C has none. So you can see that everything's cycling through the cycle of fourths backwards, which is amazing. And I was doing tritone substitution for that too. That's for a different video. But when you're doing your, when you're learning these jazz tunes, I know it's really hard to learn all the chords and all the arpeggios, and well, that's the same thing. It's redundant. The arpeggios being single notes and the chords being playing chords as a fixed chord. Remember, these chord changes are going to be stacked fourths. So either they're going to go a fourth in the direction of the floor, or a fifth going this way. So if I go from like B flat to E flat, this is the 2 and that's the 5, that's the 1. Okay, so this is 2, 5, 1. It's in a straight line, but I could also go 2, 5, 1. So I'm going up a fourth or down a fifth. They both work the same. Up a fourth or down a fifth is the same thing. So if I'm playing my arpeggio, again, within 1 octave, right? I can simply just go down a fourth, and then up a fourth, and then up a fourth. I could keep going, actually, literally. You could do like, that's like 6 keys. I think it's, I'd have to think this through and I don't have the time to do it, but I can do it. There's D flat. It's the last one. I'm thinking on the fly here to G flat. That's it. That's all. This is really crazy. This is all 12 keys of music. That is. Because it's all stacked fourths on top of each other going through the circle of fifths backwards, which is amazing. Like when I was in college, they never talked about the circle of fourths. My professors were like, you must learn the circle of fifths. It is the key to music and Western music. And then I realized, like, through just I guess just goofing around for all these years of teaching. I think I'm at 25 and a half years of guitar teaching, which I can't even believe that's possible. Just thinking about the guitar and getting, luckily, thank God, getting paid to think about the guitar, realizing that I could just go up a fourth or down a fifth and everything works like that, right? For all the chord changes and also for this, or for the soloing thing. So if I play this arpeggio here, I just jump down here, and there it is, and here's this one, and there's this one. Oh, that's major, sorry. So how easy is that? And like I was saying earlier in this talk here, was if I do this, I can connect them with passing tones as long as I know where I am in the measure. I call it measure awareness. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... I had to throw a triple ta in there because I ran out of, I was in the wrong space in the measure. I found myself, it's like being caught out after dark. You're like, oh my God. I realized I wasn't in the right spot there, so I had to do a quick triple ta. And I think maybe that's why the jazz players do that a lot. You hear a lot of like triple ta, like Charlie Parker does that a lot. Maybe because he was out of the measure. I don't know. I shouldn't say that because he's like a friggin' genius. But like the idea is to do these passing tones to the next chord, and then you can move down to half step here because it's the Beatles change. Now on Misty, because it's a ballad, you might want to throw a scale in here and there. So I just threw in a Lydian dominant scale over the D flat 7 chord. But what I was saying earlier is if you only have 2 chords in a measure, right? Even in a ballad, even if you're playing something really slow like this, I call this the satin doll factor. You only have one measure to play 2 chords. So if you're going to play scales over that, I don't think that really sounds necessarily very good. I just played B flat Dorian, and then I played this E flat Lydian dominant scale to A Lydian scale. To me, that sounds very much like he's going up a scale, he's going up a scale, he's going up a scale, he's going down a scale. I can't find a melody there. I don't know if you can hear a melody there. I just hear a bunch of notes, and nobody wants to listen to a bunch of notes. We want a tune, right? Everybody wants to have a story told to them. So this is more of a story. If I just do this. And you can get really beautiful. And you can guide into these chords by half-step connections. There it is again. So much to study. But Misty is a great tune to start with, so definitely jump into Misty. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section down below. You could always reach out and ask me questions. I'm like that doctor from the Field of Dreams when he walks off the field with his bag to help the kid who couldn't breathe. Because like I get text messages at all hours of the day and the night from students asking me questions about guitar, and I don't mind answering them. I actually really enjoy trying to help everybody, including myself, trust me, figure out how this crazy instrument of fascination works. So if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section. Just comment and say hi. Make sure you give me a like on the video, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do. I try to do these live stream videos as much as I can, maybe a couple times a week these days. So it's been really fun hanging out with you. Thank you so much for taking a look at how to play over Misty. Good night. Thank you.